Oi, always have Lois. Top of the morning, my fellow peasants. Hello, guys. How you doing? We back, and we in Cosmo Canyon. Woo! Jugendhagen theory time. Yeah. Had a really good day yesterday out at the big, was it GWK Park?
Yeah.
Garuda, big giant Garuda Vishnu statue here in Bali. I've got to say, Final Fantasy, you kind of went nuts in how you interpreted Final Fantasy, or how you interpret Hinduism, should I say? uh, you just went all out nuts. Could you imagine if they brought out a summon called Jesus, and they put Jesus, and they made Jesus a female, and stuck her in a bikini, just with a thong riding up her ass? Well, imagine if they brought out Allah or Muhammad and they just gender bend it with a big old thirst trap. You could never do that with any other religion. But yeah, basically I'm walking around, I'm seeing Garuda, and Garuda was a male. It was like a bird day, but he wasn't a bird. He was a dude. He was the son of, I think it wasn't Kadar, it was, who was the other wife? Winata? Basically, in Hinduism, who they call the All-Father, the Odin of Hinduism, he had two wives. Kadar, who was the mother of dragons. I'm going to mute. 2 seconds, I'm going to mute the game. Like clashing music. And the other wife, Winata. Anyway, Winata had a son called Garuda. No, that was Vishnu was her son. I'm so confused. I learned a lot of Hinduism yesterday. It was like walking through a magical fairy tale book.
Garuda was the son of the wife that had been enslaved.
Yeah, Garuda was the son of the wife who had been enslaved, and he was the one with the bird head, aka that's why Final Fantasy we've now had obviously two Garudas. Is it just two? We had 14 and we had the 16 one. But he was a solid dude. He was good to his mum. He was a hero. He's seen as a big iconic deity here in Hinduism. And here's Final Fantasy, just making Garuda a massive thirst trap. 16 just straight up made Benedicta a hoe. Let's be real. I like Benedicta's character, but let's not pretend she weren't willing to spread her legs for anyone and everyone. Freaking Sid, Barnabas. She even tried to get Clive in the sack a couple of times. Crazy. And then you got Shiva. Shiva, oh god, the destroyer, the great, powerful, one of the three greatest gods of the Hinduism pantheon. Yeah, let's make her ice goddess and stick her in a bikini. Crazy. Hello, Cabizantar. What's good? Slippery Prism? Genetic? Good to see you, mate. Kevin Abbott Lane. Looking forward to Final Fantasy Rising Tide DLC in a couple of days. I thought it released already. Is it on the 18th? Would you switch the lights on in here for me, Gingy boy?
Yeah.
It's a bit dark. And also, I had these on charge. My headphones are dead again. They're dead again. Come on. Well, I'm just
Garuda opinion party, you guys.
gonna have to. Could you stick those back on charge for me? Anyway, before we dive into the Cosmo Canyon, guys, I think it's only fitting I've done some Bugenhagen, some theory crafting, and we get deep into the weeds. Are you ready to get deep into the weeds with me? The philosophical, ideological weeds. Because I'm hoping Bugenhagen's going to reveal some interesting things. I'll let people sign in for a sec before we dive in. I've been pretty good. Been watching Maximilian talk about Rebirth spoiler free. Is Maximilian loving it? Is he highly critical or is he pretty praising? More praising than critical. I think everyone should have a balance of both. Everyone who's worth their salt should have a balance of criticism as well as praise. And it's kind of crazy how far and few people tend to be with balancing those two. It's usually one or the other. And then when you give a bit of praise towards a game or a bit of criticism, you get just lambasted. So it's like, once the game is finished, you have to pick a side. Are you White Whisper or you Black Whisper? Which are you? and everyone kind of gets collectively entangled into picking a side. And that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about collective unconscious. We're going to be talking about biases. We're going to be talking about the formation of the self and the 8 principles of consciousness and how it is formed through various different philosophical. I think it's more better to say philosophical than religious ideology that's been weaved into the rebirth. Found something very cool. Um, or Bree told me because I'm staying away from online stuff with spoilers. So I may make a video out of this if I get this first take, which I probably won't because there's a lot to break down here. I'm going to miss some stuff. But anyone watching this on the channel, I am only up to Cosmo Canyon. That's all I've seen. I'm not even going to be spoiling too much leading up to this. I'm going to be talking about the first remake game. But please, no spoilers. Everything I say here is just purely speculative. And I do not know how the rebirth ends. I don't want to know. I don't even want to be suggested where I might be right or wrong in this vein of thinking. But basically, Nomura came out and he put a tweet saying that there's 3 very strong influences that have gone into the scenario writing that he was reading and learning about and getting very interested in when they were writing Rebirth. And he said that those 3 things were 1, Buddhism as a whole, 2, Carl Jung, and 3, something called Yogacara. I don't know if you guys know a little bit Yogacara is. I didn't even know, but after reading what Yogacara is, what has been going into Nomura's brain cave, I was able to reverse engineer so much of what has gone into the story, and it was so much confirmation for a lot of the theories that I've been riffing, and people have been telling me I'm insane. Pez, that would be lame. That would suck. Specifically, I'm talking to some of the spiritual and religious philosophical ideas. You could say it's more like a branch of mysticism, like psychology mysticism, that Japan is very weaved with, um, especially when it comes to Buddhism. And when we talk about reality, our perception of reality, how it's formed, how it interacts, and how the self is formed not just by the exterior world, but also in interactions with other selves. And as soon as I've been talking about that, all the theories I've done, I've always been presented with Pez. I like your theories, but these are too what? Huh? Oh, it was Nojima who said this. Right, thank you for the clarification. Not Nomura, Nojima. Which actually that's even more so confirming to me. Because when you said Nomura, I thought, okay, yeah, Nomura definitely is a creative director, he's co-director, he's definitely having some influence on the story and pouring his ideas in. I've said that one definitely Nojima. He is so heavy on the writing. Him and Hamaguchi. This is why we're getting all this Final Fantasy X stuff, where it's more than just little meaningless Easter eggs. This is a straight up tie to 10, 10.3, the Far Plane, the compilation, um, between Aerith as a summoner or the Aerith Yuna similarities, sending souls, being able to control spirit matter, which in turns is more or less having a semblance of control over reality itself. And once that concept of reality is weaved in with all of the psychological elements, that's why from day one, when I've been talking about dream space, dream weaving, when I've been talking about these complex spiritual premises, and people say, "Pez, I like your theories, but I don't like all that mysticism, woo-woo nonsense. I don't think that's in the game." You don't think that's in the game? A game that has souls, that has people leaving their spirit bodies, a game that is underpinned by the concept of a life stream, a collective pool of essentially what is memory. Memory is what makes the live stream, and memory is, of course, formed through consciousness, both the direct consciousness and the unconsciousness, and how that's also tied to things like karma. So what we've just seen is, well, I don't know if I could say this as well, but we've seen white whispers and black whispers, basically, and that they're falling into 2 camps. You've got the Sephi Nova camp, and you've got the life stream side. And what happens? Why does a soul go to one side or the other? Well, it's based on the life that they lived, the karmic entanglements they got into. If they got into a cycle of fear, regret, hate, self-loathing. If they got indoctrinated by evil regimes, um, then they fall into the black whisper side. Um, and then vice versa, you get the polarity for the white side. And every time I've spoken about this or I've spoken about dreams, people take a complex subject and they simplify it. They're like I'm talking like babble language. They're like, okay, Pez, so what you're saying is that everything in the whole remake trilogy is a dream. It's all a dream. And then Cloud woke up. None of it happened. None of it's all. No, that's really not what it means. Of course, dreaming is a concept in it because it's one of, this is where we're going to talk about Yogacara, because I was looking at this from the Kabbalistic lens. I am so happy that Najima has come out and said, yo, this is the stuff I'm reading. And if you understand this and you look at this, like these three different branches of philosophy I've been looking at, you're going to understand the story better. I love that. We so rarely get that in the series. There's always weaves, because I love it. I love this stuff. Mythology, philosophy, ideologies, religions. I'm always trying to dissect and pick out where they are. They're always subtle, and you never know if you go down the right branch of thinking. But now Najima's come out and straight said it. Carl Jung, Buddhism, and Yogacara. Anyway, got to read into Yogacara, and all of a sudden you're going to see why something like the concepts of dreams that I've been picking out is not so ludicrous, and it's much deeper than and then they all woke up. Because I mean, just giving a little bit of for anyone watching this, when I've been speaking about those, we've seen numerous times. I mean, this even existed in OG. There's a reason why it was Cloud. I'm Cloud, Strive, master of my own illusory world. Talk about that very basic core philosophical principle of what is reality. Is it something that we construct and we something create? Is there any such thing as an objective reality? How do we perceive it? How do we shape it in our minds? And then, more importantly, especially when it comes to Buddhism and aka the pursuit of freedom and liberation and enlightenment, how is it that the ego that wants to orientate itself in the world by creating this is that, no, an understanding of itself and the world around. The ego must have that. Without that, the ego goes haywire. It needs to know up and down. It needs to know what am I, who am I, and it needs to attach a label to that because without that, the ego goes into a spiral. Even though being free of ego is ultimate liberation, it's terrifying. Boundless, terrifying freedom. Boundless, terrifying freedom. So very cool stuff. Um, Hold up, let me pull up my Yogacara page. And we'll dive into this. I don't really think Bugenhagen's going to give any context to all of this, but a couple of places where we had dreams. So in OG, we had Cloud talk about how he constructs reality and how he's tricking and deluding himself. But now we've seen it on steroids in the remake. I said from day one, when we saw Cloud overlaying Nibelheim onto Midgar, I was like, we could say that's just in Cloud's mind, but how much is Cloud actually imprinting onto reality? Is that possible? Is the contents of Cloud's mind actually showing up in the world? And this is exactly what Yogacara talks about, that there is a correlation between the external objective world and the internal. And obviously what's happening now with Cloud is we're seeing him out and out affect the outer world. It was no clearer than obviously the Sephiroth bridge scene. It's just in Cloud's head, and then Tifa touched him, and now the whole crew sees him. Cloud is, that was an example of his internal illusory self showing up objectively to the rest of the crew. So that was one example of it. Then we had the date scene with Aerith where he shows up and he says to Aerith, is this a dream? Is this a dream? It all looks real, it looks tangible. And then you see the live stream floating up on the horizon. And Aerith just looks at him and says, I don't know, you tell me. Cloud's dream, the construct of his unconscious. That's just what dreaming means. It's not dreaming in the literal sense of, oh, I'm asleep and none of it's real. It's just that reality and the complexities of consciousness means that the dream state and reality aren't so different, according to Yogacara as well. And Yogacara is basically the blend between Japanese Buddhism and old Indian yoga. And yoga is purely no, it's more than just doing poses, downward facing dogs and tree poses. A lot of people think it's just like a physical thing, like Tai Chi. It's not really the point of yoga. Yoga is actually more like meditation. It's supposed to be a practice that, with single pointed focusness and by aligning mind, body, and spirit, is supposed to lead the person to break down what is the curse of every human being, is that we are perpetually divided. We are split. We are split just based on how our consciousness works. From day one, when we interact, and I was saying to Bree this morning, Evangelion did a really good job at also showing this. I wouldn't be surprised if the director of that also read books like Yogacara or various Japanese like philosophical thinking. But if anyone's seen Evangelion, you know exactly what I mean. Shinji, the main character, he has an opportunity to basically experience in a dream state just boundless freedom. He's floating on a white canvas, and he's like, "Oh, this is what freedom is. There's no up, there's no down, there's no walls, there's no steel sky or steel plate. The great blue sky, there's no steel plate, there's no boundaries to anything." And while it feels really freeing, the character's also like, "Oh, but it's also really disorientating because who am I? What am I?" Then his brain sort of goes into a neurotic episode of, well, what am I? Am I this? Am I that? Am I what they think? And Evangelion just really breaks it down, dissects it to, oh no, there's many Shinjis. There's the Shinji you think you are. There's the Shinji in that person's mind. There's the Shinji in that character's mind. There's a million one different Shinjis, just like there's going to be a million one different clouds. And how the complexities of all the personas within clouds interact and commingle, which is also on steroids because, of course, Genova cells. Genova cells are saying, it's very interesting. I feel like it's a double-edged sword with Genova. Its greatest strength is also its greatest weakness, right? Because Genova cells that's what allows Cloud to imprint Zack into his persona, integrate Zack into his own, the formation of his unconscious mind. It's also what allows Cloud to form Tifa in his mind. And obviously that's twisted and manipulated, but it's the Genova cells that allow that to happen. And that's also what's Cloud's greatest strength, right? That's what brings forth the hero in Cloud. That's what also brings him back to his authentic childhood self through Tifa. And what we see is that the imprinting happens, and then Genova has to almost go in and try to infect the imprinting that has happened. Prime example of that, Cloud seeing young Tifa angrily staring at him, like as a child, angry, like mean to him. Najima or Nomura, I can't remember who else came out straight, it said, Tifa never pulled that face. That's more or less either how Cloud is remembering it to fit with the narrative of he's an outcast, no one liked me, it wasn't me who fucked it up because I was antisocial and shy and introverted, or it's just straight up a Genova twist to try to break down their relationship. And that's what Genova has to do, right? She has to go in and corrupt the very imprinting that has occurred. And that's obviously, I'm just going to say, that's got me thinking about like Zack now, straight up. Thinking about what world Zack is in. This video is going to be ping-ponging all over the place, but I am just awash with thoughts because I spoke about Buddhism. I recognize Buddhism in the game, even in OG days, because Cloud is on a path towards enlightenment. And what's cool, because I mostly spoke about it in a Kabbalistic sense as well, is that the Kabbalah and Buddhism actually have a lot of similarities. So both of them, to get to enlightenment, you have to go through 8 stages. So on the Sephiroth, the Tree of Life, you have 9 Sephiroths, and the very top is essentially enlightenment. But before you can get to the top, you have to go through the other 8. No coincidence that there's also 8 characters in the party. And in the Kabbalah, you have to learn the traits of these 8, and they really well correspond with the characters in the game. So like Garuda, no, Gavura. I'm not gonna be able to remember the actual Kabbalistic names, but you have like wisdom. I think that was Benar. You could say that's like Nanaki. You have severity. You could say Cloud learns that from Barrett. You have the Sephiroth called Tiferet, which is the Sephiroth of beauty. Definitely say Cloud learns beauty from Tifa, and that he goes through that process. And then the very bottom one is the kingdom, the material world. And this is what the Kabbalists really talk about, the final stage, but also the most difficult to overcome. The complete and utter attachment to the external world. So I was looking at it in that sense. But to see Yogacara listed by Najima, Yogacara basically takes the same principle. So the Buddha obviously had the eightfold path. You've got to go through 8 stages. Well, Yogacara slightly twisted that. It's still 8, but the 8 are based on the 5 senses, and they say that these are the 8 forms of consciousness: smell, hearing, taste, touch, the hearing, the 5 senses. That those are all a form of consciousness of their own. Then the 6th is the conscious mind, the aware mind, the one that is at the forefront of our perception. Then the 7th stage is the unconscious. So this is where you really get into the Carl Jung nitty-gritties, the shadow self, the archetypical structures that we create in our mind. Am I a hero? Am I a villain? Am I a jester? Am I a nurturer? Am I a supporter? All these different, right? The archetypes are endless. And obviously that's what a lot of Carl Jung's work has gone into. And I spoke about even Carl Jung in some theories, especially when it came to mimetic legacies, meme from the Greek word mimeme, which is essentially a cultural unit of information that acts similar to gene, analogous to a gene. It's not real science, but the idea that memes, ideas, thoughts can pass and propagate themselves through people's minds to where they pass it on almost without meaning to. And that the stronger a meme, a cultural unit, spreads around, how you get a collective unconscious. Once that happens enough, you get a collective unconscious. Very quickly on that point now, because obviously Genova has a mimetic legacy. And I've been talking about Sephiroth having a mimetic legacy. I haven't spoke about Zack having one. Is that why the kids have the Buster swords? Because Zack is the archetype of the hero in the game, and that's just part of the live stream showing us through the children that this archetype of the hero, because it's more than just Zack, right? It dates back to Angel. And then Angel, where did he get that trait from? It's a core part of what we're seeing a lot with the soldier. I was hoping Roche was going to try to embody this, but you could even say at one point Glenn Lodbrok. I don't know if he was really heroic or had that strong hero principle, that samurai Bushido code, the overcoming of the fear of death for a higher purpose. So you've got that mimetic legacy sewn into the live stream. But then we've also got Queen's Blood. And again, I don't know if they were just pulling our leg with that, but things like sports and games, it's silly, but even that is a very strong form of meme that can affect the collective consciousness on a broader scale. I mean, look at football. I mean, you get this, Ginge. We don't really like football, but if you look at football, no clearer can you see across the entire world how it forms various little substratas of collective unconscious.
Yeah.
It's the same sport, but every country has a different take on it. It has a different personality, a different flavor. And it seems like everyone almost becomes it.
Yeah.
You see the World Cup. I don't know. I know Americans, you don't really participate in it, but everyone almost starts thinking the same. They start behaving the same. Their mannerisms start showing up the same way. And then obviously, even not just with England. Once you then start breaking down, you've got Chelsea, Manchester, West Ham. And then they all start taking on like a similar personality.
Yeah.
Oh, this is how Manchester fans are. This is how these fans are. Because they are. They're merging into a particular persona and embodying it themselves. And you can see how strong and infectious that is. Some people fall to it completely. They make their entire personality football. They make the way they talk, the way they behave, the way they show up in the world, all based around football. So when we got something like Queen's Blood, though it seems like ludicrous to have this weave of what is this game? What have I done? What have I unleashed? And I've just got to Cosmo Canyon and some lady saying, oh yeah, the live stream is corrupted and it's using Queen's Blood as a vehicle, affecting it. That obviously could be nonsense, but it also could be very, very real that Genova would actually use something like Queen's Blood, a game, because she knows that the human mind works on this, again, Carl Jung, collective unconscious, this very malleable and infectious. That's how memes and ideas pass around. And Yogacara is exactly the same. So I'm just going to go in and read some of this. And then you'll see what I'm talking about with the idea of dreams and the consciousness. And yeah, once you go through those 8 stages of Yogacara, that's how you hit enlightenment, the same as the Kabbalists. But Yogacara, an influential tradition of Buddhist philosophy and psychology, emphasizing the study of cognition, perception, and consciousness. Yogacara is one of the 2 most influential traditions in Mahayana Buddhism. And the compound Yogacara literally means practitioner of yoga. I didn't even know Japanese Buddhism had such a way. I think this came like a couple hundred years or 300 years after Buddha himself. But it obviously merged with like, a lot of core Indian principles, and there's a lot of like Sanskrit sort of weaved into it as well, which is primarily meant to aid in the practice of yoga and meditation. One of the main features is the concept of I ain't gonna be able to say these Indian words, man. The standard translation is consciousness only or mind only. So the idea that Yogacara tries to imprint is to think of everything as only mind. And the reason why they do that is it's a way to try to overcome that really tricky thing that human brains have where we think the external world is utter reality, the only reality, complete reality. There's nothing beyond it. That consciousness comes after reality, not the other way round. And the reason why Yogacara presents it that way, even though it's idealistic, is so that a person can get over the concept of I. I is a very, very tricky thing. Again, like I was saying with Evangelion, Shinji has boundless, terrifying freedom, but he's disorientated by it. And then what's really cool, the way they do it in Evangelion, is they just draw a line. They just draw a squiggle on the white canvas. And Shinji, he lands on the flat line and he goes, "Oh, that feels a little bit better. I feel like I've got some semblance of the world now." And it's narrating over the top and it says, "Yeah, now you have up and down. Now you have something to walk on, something to orientate yourself with. But now, with that, a piece of your freedom has been taken away because now you are constrained to walking on the ground." So, in serving your ego a little bit and giving it some parameters, you've actually subtracted some of your freedom. And on and on that will go as you try to figure out the I. So Yogacara tries to reverse that by getting rid of any semblance of an external world, thinking of it as a consciousness or mind only. Here we go. So this is just some of the origins. Dates back a long, long time. So the interpretation of this doctrine is a form of subjective or absolute idealism. Has been the most common outside interpretation, not only by modern writers, but by its ancient opponents, both Hindu and Buddhist. It affirms the idea. I should have probably just extracted my notes out, but there's some little juicy juicies I want to share, because if you think of this in the context of 7, it makes a lot of juicy sense. Hold up. Let me just search some keywords. Right, here we go. Okay, so according to Yogacara practitioners, we are only ever aware of mental images or impressions which manifest themselves as external objects, but in fact there is actually no such thing outside of the mind. These representations are just that, mere representations, because there is no corresponding thing or object. Just as in a dream they appear, you know, the thing or object just in the mind alone, forms, images of all kinds of things, objects like visible sound, smells, taste, tangibles, houses, forests, lands, and mountains. And yet there are no such things, objects at all in that place. And considering the external world like this is how Yogacara practitioners look to find freedom from themselves, which is very cool when you look back to OG, when you actually have Cloud, when he's on the high wind, and he says, I've been thinking about things. As he says, he's like, I've been thinking about, and he lists a bunch of external things in the world. Birds, trees, mountains, the ocean. I've been thinking about them. Because obviously Cloud is trying to figure out reality, right? He's trying to figure out who he is. And in doing that, leads him to thinking about the external world. And the more Cloud gets thinking about that, shortly after that's, especially when we have him with his little enlightenment scene, he's got the live stream swirling around him, his hand goes up, you've got Eriton, the live stream, and then he powers up like crazy, and that's when he bukaks Sephiroth. So it's kind of cool that that's one of the core processes of going through the 8 stages, because we actually see Cloud do it. Uh, So yeah, this whole thing with dream space, Genova Dreamweaver, I was talking about Cloud. Could he actually become a Dreamweaver? How reality is being presented in 7 as being indistinguishable from illusion at times. That dated all the way back to before Crisis when I did that lost number theory. You got Fado and Shotgun, the Turks. They go down into the Nibelheim basement, and then boom, next minute they're over in, I think it's Sector 8 Midgar. And bam, again, they're in the calm fire bombings, and they're looking around. They're like, what? How the hell did we get here? Have we just time traveled? Have we just. They even ask that. Have we just time traveled? Which is hilarious, being that we've got these different worlds. And I've constantly said, yeah, I think, my Buddhist argument for where Cloud is, I said it's like purgatory. In the Kabbalistics interpretation of the number 49, that means dimensionality within dimensionality, multiple layers of spiritual world masquerading and disguising themselves as ultimate reality, and that the souls in it think that they're in the objective real world, but they're not. They're just in one gradient of a much, much bigger picture. So that's what the Kabbalists use the word number 49 for, and then the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or Tibetan Buddhism, they use 49 as after you die, you spend 49 days in a essentially false illusory world, in a purgatory, reliving out your karmic regrets. And obviously, so we had Lost Number doing that as well, creating worlds of illusion. And the new Genova that they've just introduced is Genova Dreamweaver. So again, this is Najima's influence. I'm absolutely certain of it, because according to critics, the problem of spatial temporal determination. I'll run that by you again. The problem of spatial temporal determination, or non-arbitrariness in regard to place and time. So again, when you're presented with that in Ever Crisis, they thought, oh, have we time traveled? Here we have the entire fan base thinking, oh, are these 2 different lines? Are they different timelines? This is all something to do with time. We've got Zach on an alternate timeline. It's not about timelines at all. It's about these core. It's the same as Matrix, essentially. Yogacara takes the 5 senses as the first 5 of the 8 forms of consciousness and asks, okay, well, then does that make it real? Just like Morpheus asked. Is reality what you hear, smell, taste, touch? Okay, in that case, reality is just electrical signals sent to your brain. But Yogacara indicates that there must be some external basis for our experiences. Experiences of any particular object do not occur everywhere and at every time. So Vasubandhu, in particular, philosophical thinking within Yogacara, responds with the dream argument, which shows how a world created by mind can still seem to have spatio-temporal localization, aka up, down, a consistent flow of time, a consistent semblance of reality. And the problem of intersubjective experience, aka multiple minds experiencing the same world, Vasubandhu counters that mass hallucinations, such as those said to occur to hungry ghosts, caused by the fact that they share similar karma. I don't know if that makes I don't know if any of this makes fucking sense to anyone. I read that, I'm like, oh my god. What ghosts? What ghosts? So we have white whispers, we have black whispers. We had two weapons. We have a world split into two. How can a soul be in two places at once? How can they be so indistinguishable from reality, each one of them? Problem of intersubjective experience. Multiple minds experiencing the same world. Fusabandhu counters that mass hallucinations, such as those said to occur to hungry ghosts, caused by the fact they share similar karma. So yeah, the black uh, whispers versus the white whispers. The only thing that differentiates those is what was the karma that the soul went through at the time of going into the live stream. Was it burdened with heavy karma, negative karma, dark karma? Or was its karma good? So essentially the difference is, did the person cheat, steal, manipulate, murder? Um, did they manipulate others? That's what bad karma is, according to Yogachara. That's what Sephiroth does. There's no real difference between Sephiroth and Aerith, and I actually think Cloud just said that. I'm pretty sure leading into Cosmo Canyon. Kate Sith asked the question, oh, Sephiroth's back? Well, what does he want? And Cloud says he wants to save the world. And then Sith says, well, doesn't that make him the good guy? And Cloud counters, no, it's because he doesn't give a shit about who he kills or who he uses to get to that end. So it's the using of others. Now, of course, the polarity of that, the white whispers, is service to others, compassion, empathy, kindness, respecting somebody else's autonomy, their independence, which is what we saw Najima write in the live stream white chapters. Aerith had the capacity to create remnants like Sephiroth, but she didn't because she thought it would manipulate, influence, or in some way exert some sort of force onto Cloud. She did not want to do that whatsoever. And that's the difference in karma: service to self and service to others. Manipulation versus free will. Those are really the only two differences. And based on which one of those you fall into, according to Yogachara, will create a mass hallucination that basically will create that sense of a spatial, temporal, local, a world created by space and time. Does this starting to make sense? World of livestream, world of chaos, black whispers, white whispers. Another criticism states that hallucinations have no pragmatic results, efficiency, or causal function, and thus can be determined to be unreal. But entities we generally accept as being real have actual causal results, such as the resistance of external objects, that cannot be of the same class as hallucinations. Against this claim, Vusabandhu argues that waking life is the same as in a dream, where objects have pragmatic results within the very rules of the dream. So basically, mental content can have causal efficacy even outside of a dream. Illusion Sephiroth. Illusion Sephiroth actually showing up in the swamp, actually yeeting amid Gazolam. Now, Najima, just reading this has made me understand his thought processes so much harder. Before I go any deeper, because I know I'm getting too into the weeds here. Who's in the house? 87 homies. Whoa, genetic. Woo! Thank you, mate. Need some good karma. Big job interview tomorrow. Yo, best of luck. Hold on, man. I need you to put your third eye to your screen, genetic. Oh, there we go. I gave you all the good karma I've got. I don't need it. I don't need it. What's that? Is that food? You gonna give me some food?
I'm always on food.
Evening pairs. What a crazy time of gameplay. Hello, Red Dragons. Good to see you. Gabriel up in the house.
Whenever
Now
you
let's
decide. I
discuss applied quantum mechanics.
feel like you have to do it right now.
Well, straight up, as much as I sit and I say, oh, there's like this isn't timelines or anti-sciencey kind of stuff, it actually does all weave into this as well. They do use scientific elements as a basis for some of these highly spiritual concepts. I'm not saying like none of it applies to it, because it absolutely does. But what I've just always been a proponent of is that there's a much more spiritual, much more soul level weave going on that's explaining these crazy ongoings. Because, yeah, not only is there the concept of karma in Yogacara, and that creates mass hallucinations, aka like Carl Jung, a collective unconsciousness. And Yogacara says that collective unconsciousness can actually create spatial temporal um, worlds, essentially, that people conform to and have its own set of rules, as Zach's line inevitably does, versus the line we're on. But it's also weaved in the concept of dharma. So karma and dharma, that's kind of what makes the soul go on the trajectory and the path it is. Dharma basically means purpose. This tattoo here by Android Jones is actually called the Dharma Dragon. It's actually a dragon back there. So I got it based on the fact that it's designed like ayahuasca, basically high fantasy shamanism, which is a concept I love. Yeah, which essentially Aerith is. But Dharma essentially means your purpose. Now, a Western word that we use for that is usually fate. What is our fate? Dharma is more or less what you need to do in your life. So you end up a white plot ghost instead of a black plot ghost. And it's also interesting that as I was reading the Cosmo Canyon, I think Gingy Boy brought up an Alan Watts quote. What was it? So we were talking about that sense of, or the concept of not getting lost too much in the eye, of not thinking of the external world as self or separate to self. And Alan Watts says, actually see yourself as a drop in the ocean. You are still part of the ocean. You're still, and it's a panpsychic way of thinking, which is also exactly how Yogacara goes by it. Guys, I missed last stream. Did Pez reach Cosmo Canyon Town proper? I've walked in and I've had a few Queen's Blood games. That's about it. Pez Brain is Cosmo Canyon. I'm on Cosmo Canyon Brain. And now I'm going to be looking at Bugenhagen's like cloak again. I've been looking at it from the Kabbalistic sense. I wonder if you can also look at it from the Yogacara POV. Right. We finish this off real quick because I'm taking way too long. uh, Right, so this section says again the four investigations, the four correct cognitions. So the 8 forms of consciousness you've got to go through. The investigations lead to correct cognition, resulting from the investigation of names, just for that which they are. Just names, arbitrary linguistic signs. This is where it kind of gets complex, but it's like if you have a watermelon or pomegranate and you call it that, by very virtue of calling it something, you define it for what it is, and in the exact moment that you define it for what that is, it no longer is that. It's what you've created it to be. So if you say pomegranate is food, you now always will define that as, okay, that's something I eat. Whereas, and even just using the word pomegranate, you can eat a pomegranate, but you cannot eat the concept of a pomegranate. That's very, very convoluted, but another way that this was put is the moment that you tell a child that that is a bird, the child no longer sees the bird. They'll never see a bird again. Weird, but follow me. So the investigation of things leads to correct cognition resulting from the investigation. One understands that this is apart from all labels and inexpressible, namely a mere presence of things in itself. The investigation of verbal designations suggesting and portraying an intrinsic nature leads to correct cognition resulting from the investigation of such designations. One sees the designations for what they are, namely as mere designations. Thus, one sees the idea of intrinsic nature, I'm butchering the words. Thus, one sees the idea of intrinsic nature to be illusory, like a hallucination or a dream. And by basically going through these conceptual investigations and 4 correct cognitions, you repeatedly remove any ideation conductive to the proliferation directed at all phenomena and to consistently dwell on the thing in itself with a non-conceptualizing mental state, which is focused on grasping only the object perceived without any characteristics. So a little bit less convoluted. Just be like how you name someone else. Evangelion did this really nice as well. Is that the moment that you're born, you don't really have any concept of self or other. The first other that you come into contact with is your parents. And at first, a child does not fully grasp the concept of the separation, but very, very quickly you start to realize that is another. And your parents are the first person that you realize that separation. And it's in coming into that separation, obviously depending on the kind of parent that you had, were they nurturing? Were they caring? Or were they neglectful? Did they express a lot of anger? Um, what did they teach you about right or wrong? How did they? Did you annoy them? Did you infuriate them? Did they tell you to stop doing this or that? How, when you first formed your sense of another, is exactly how you began to define yourself in early years. That's why, pretty much depending on how you grew up and how that very, very crazy, deep, like ludicrously complex like moment occurred in your young years, that shit's going to affect you for the rest of your life. Most of us will be perpetually confined to whatever happened in that process. It's why childhood trauma and shadow work and the child self and everything that Carl Jung kind of explored in psychology and how it roots back into childhood, and obviously how we're exploring it now in Seven. It's how powerful that whole process is. Um, there was something else in it, but I'm lost in the wiki. Anyway, that's Yogacara. That's what Najim has been weaving into the game. It's very cool. With all this high fantasy twang on top of it, I don't know how they're going to be ending the Rebirth, obviously, or this trilogy as a whole. But the main thing that it solidifies to me was looking down that vein of thinking what's solid, and that we also have to, and I think fans are going to really struggle with this, you need to look at everything with a scrutinizing eye. That everything we're presented at first may not be as reliable or set in stone or absolute as it first appears. FF7 has always weaved in the concept of the unreliable narrator. Cloud is not a reliable narrator by any stretch. I mean, him especially, being that he's obviously infected with Genova. But even without him, everyone's an unreliable narrator. Everyone has cognitive biases. Everyone has that mental construct process going on. And I don't want to say too much on this front because we're obviously in Red's section now. But when it came to like Sephiroth clones, and when I was doing the video of like looking at all of them and finding one of them that specifically had the ability to dreamweave and twist this concept of mentalism and the external world, as I went through the list, I obviously picked out Zack. He is a Sephiroth clone, and Red is also a Sephiroth clone. I'll quickly say I'm not hating Red's voice as well. What is also really pissing me off is that whenever I say anything in the game, even if I don't say anything outright, I am getting bombarded with comments, and I can tell the comments aren't aimed at me. They are people who have been having arguments for fucking weeks, and they've constructed paragraphs and they sent them at me. So, me obviously hearing Red's young voice, I'm like, whoa, oh, shit. But it's so strange. I mean, obviously I knew he was young, and the game made that clear, and that his mannerisms can shift. But wow, they're doing it with the voice portrayal as well. That's crazy. And Bree just asked the question, and she's like, "Oh, so like, do you mind it?" I'm like, "No, it's jarring. It's just jarring right now." And Bree was like, "Yeah, it was for me too. You will eventually get used to it." And a lot of people agreed with that. But then I look on the comment section of my video, and I'm just getting bombarded with players. Do you not even play OG? They made it clear as day that Red was acting differently. That he was behaving differently. That he was young. Yes, I fucking know. Everyone knows that. Alright? I'm not even coming out saying I hate the voice. And you're already sending me the paragraphs. Like, clearly, you've sent it to every person. Because I've seen a few people saying, oh, the worst part about Rebirth is Red's voice. It's his voice. And clearly you've like gone down time. And I can tell this is happening with everything. It's actually driving Bree insane. Bree comes out and she's just like, I can't stand it. I can't stand fans. The amount of vitriol, the amount of come tell us about it, Bree. Come tell us a little bit about it. Have a rant because I need a pee. But quickly on this point while I was talking about Red. is also he is a Sephiroth clone. In OG, he worried that he was infected, that he was going to go the same way as a Sephiroth clone. He has Genova cells in him. So by virtue that every person, by the very core concept that we are all trapped in cognitive mental prisons, subject to a lot of flaw, or yeah, they're just flawed. And Yogachara looks to overcome that flaw, or recognize that flaw for what it is, and in that sense gain freedom. Red could also be exceptionally unreliable. He has Genova cells in him. I think we overlook it. Just because Zack, with his mannerisms, was able to overcome Genova cells, and Red being a beast, connected to the planet more, doesn't obviously show the signs. It doesn't mean he's still not infected by it. And in fact, you can backtrace that to when Red was tricked in OG to handing off the black materia.
Yeah, I sat there thinking about that for a long time
Mhm.
last night, about the fact that Red is also, he also does have Genova cells in him.
Mhm.
And you said also he's also a Sephiroth clone.
Yeah, he's
so
a
I'm like,
Sephiroth clone.
so Red isn't a reliable person as well. And then my
Yep.
brain started going down a whole bunch of rabbit holes and spinning out, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, my brain. I
What
didn't
are we
really,
gonna
I
do
didn't
with
really
that?
articulate this, but when the scene with Cloud doubting Tifa's real, it was obviously a misdirect from Sephiroth to break them down. But my mind, for a brief second, went, "But what if that ain't Tifa? What if there is someone else in the party who could be
Genova?
giving something to their side?" Because obviously, Sephiroth has reopened this story and is looking to infiltrate it and not make the mistakes of the past. It's clearer to me now, looking back and thinking back to the weapon scene. He weren't just trying to kill the weapon; he was straight up trying to kill Tifa.
He went straight for
She
her.
was in the orb, and when he shoved the sword in there, he was looking to stab her ass.
Yeah, he went
So
straight for
Tifa's
her.
in big, big trouble.
Yeah.
Big, big trouble. But yeah, Red, he's in the party the whole time, and those Genova cells are there. Even if they're dormant, even if they're on the back foot, even if they're just chilling in the backdrop, they are there. And therefore, Sephiroth has or Genova has some ability to um, exert some sort of control or influence. And then what's also got me thinking, that gave me a headcanon, is Zack. Here he is in this other world, and he's got this mission to look after their bodies, and he's going to be propelled onto this by Biggs. Biggs, interesting. Biggs, who also was one of the first ones to take Cloud on his journey. I'm starting to fucking think, is all of that just something to occupy Zack? Because what we saw in Advent Children, was it not the case that Sephiroth's defeat was because Zack the hero showed up when Cloud was on his knees, defeated? Zack showed up, gave him the boost, and that defeated Sephiroth. Now, Sephiroth's looking back. What mistakes did I make? What do I need to do different? I need to deal with this girl Tifa in a different way. I need to handle it, not chuckling. Oh, look at this picture. Oh, look, you weren't there. Blah, 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 blah. I need to take that shit more seriously. Secondly, fuck, I need to deal with Zack.
Yeah.
And what better way to deal with Zack than to occupy him with some sort of fucking tangent? Send him down the yellow brick road. Well, what's going to send Zack down the yellow brick road? Give him something that his hero instinct will chase.
Yeah.
Give him a bone. He's thrown the puppy a bone to go and chase. I'm just like, I don't know at that point if it's the planet or if it is literally purgatory space and Zack's just being sent down a.
Don't call me out here for something.
Anyway, yeah. Sorry, you were saying. I was saying about just fans and how they are so gridlocked into these like biases over the game
Ooh.
to the point where they will
Yeah.
they will assert things that didn't happen in the game. They will assert
Twist
things about the
things.
writing, twist things that aren't even the case. So when I'm talking about spiritual concepts, they're like, no, none of that exists. It's just this. When I talk about hallucinations and dream spaces and how the mental world is like so fluid and they really go out the way in constructing a whole story around it. No, it's none of that. There's none of that. It's just this. It's just Cloud and Tifa shipping and this and that and they get so
Aerith and Cloud versus Tifa and Cloud, and this is why Aerith is ABC, and this is why.
But yeah, so you've
Asuka-
seen a bit more of that since
Oh
finishing
yeah,
the game,
so
right?
I
We'll end this video on this.
I don't really
before I
want to
go
be
to
on
the game.
camera, but you can see my shoulder.
Yeah, go on.
So, here, come sit on my shoulder, and I'll tell you about it. So,
Jiminy Cricket.
I hate a large percentage of this fandom, and I always have, which is why I have always stayed away. I've always stayed very, very far away from the online bullshit because from a young age, I realized it was insane, it was annoying, it was obnoxious, and it was cringe above all else. Very cringe, the most cringe in the worst kind of way. And
We just keep saying they're fully grown adults.
like, yes, there are fully grown adults that are arguing about video game relationships and twisting things and lying and saying certain things happened that didn't happen. People saying certain things about Barrett's character. People saying that the whole game is ruined because of the dying thing. And I it's one of these things where it's like you kind of have me in certain ways. Like I do agree that not dying to suicide wasn't the way to do it. I think that this game is chronically not committing to the brutal sides of
Yeah.
FF7. And I think that that could be what lets it fall short. But
Mm.
ruin it? No, I don't think it could ruin it. I do have upset feelings with that, but
Yeah.
whenever you take a valid point and you go so far into the next universe with it and you start attacking people and you start saying really just stupid things and lying, just straight up lying about what happens in the story, spreading misinformation, uh taking something that did happen and just twisting it just to fit your narrative rather than look and think from like the developer's point of view. It's like, okay, what do these people typically do? What are the misdirects that they
What I
usually do?
said, you have to.
Makes the most sense. Like for this game, it seems like common sense to me. The fact that it's like, okay, Cloud is an unreliable narrator, so who can we trust? The party. Okay, everything makes sense. But no, everybody's taking things and just twisting them and arguing, and it really a lot of it is coming down to
We
shoving words.
overbelieve in Cloud. I don't know what Bree's talking about, obviously, because I've
Yeah,
not got there, but
it's not even that.
no
It's just
spoilers. No
people
spoilers.
taking things and twisting it
Yeah.
to fit what their copium mind wants it to be.
And what I don't
And
understand about that is
they attack anybody that gives them facts.
what I don't understand about that as well is I've seen some people do massive like jumps of logic or just throwing out certain like core vital parts of okay, well the developers do this, you know they do this, these are typical for them. That could be a red herring, that could be a misdirect. To not understand, which you can only get that understanding by playing the game numerous times, by playing a lot of Final Fantasy games, by experiencing the entire compilation of FF7, which I know there's a lot out there, so not everyone has. So I know I've seen people just flat out refute me about stuff. Because I know that's in Advent Children. Oh, well, I haven't really seen that.
Mm.
But then still continue with, so I still think it's this. I'm like, no, Advent Children has directly said that's not the case. No, I still think it is. It's like they want to just create
So many Advent Children haters.
they want to create their own masters of their own illusory world. But what strikes me is how what they copium logic to figure out is a much weaker story.
Yeah.
It's a much weaker premise. Like
It's
when I was
everybody's happy.
it's like when I was talking about the life stream and how mentalism and panpsychism
Yeah.
and how Buddhist philosophy and how Kabbalistic interpretations and how I mean, I've spoken about all of these in my theories, mimetic legacy, how this is all weaving into what's happening. They're like, no, it's timelines. It's timelines. It's time travel. Why is that better?
It's like, no, we're not. You have to realize what
Why
game
is
you're
that a
playing.
better answer? Like you're
We're
so
playing a game where there is a thing called a live stream. Whether you like it or not, it is connecting everything.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do
Like,
with timelines.
mine at least connects everything. Yours just incorporates some new plot device or sci-fi, essentially. Like you try to make the game more sci-fi and less spiritual mysticism, and it's like, well, why do you want to make it more sci-fi? That would be a
Because
new incorporation.
their brains can't wrap
Yeah,
around
it is.
the live
It's
stream. I
super
think.
esoteric. Yeah, and you can
And this is
you can not
right.
like super esoteric stuff and not mentally like pay too much attention to it because you more like the sci-fi steampunk kind of aspect to it because Seven has numerous aspects to it and you can focus on that, but your focus doesn't have to mean at the subtraction of what is. And I was saying about that with the dying scene. So no, him dying to Shinra troopers rather than suiciding, because suicide is a sensitive topic, which the fan base has proven that when it comes to sensitive topics, do we want them or don't we?
I
Because on one side we go, oh, I wish they boldly committed to that. I do. I want to see things that happen in the real world show up, and that can be triggering and upsetting for some. But that's what's powerful
It's
about good
life.
story writing. But
Life
then,
is triggering and upsetting.
so while the fan base says they want that, then something like 16 happens where it just has the core concept of slavery, and they shit the bed. Oh, slavery, that's so insensitive. Oh my God, how could you do slavery and not have it be only black African people?
It's like, that is more offensive. You do realize that.
It's like, my dudes, so inconsistent across the fan base. And I mean, it's not the fan base. There's people on all sides of poles. Some people want a really soft, watery, easy to digest milk toast
It is
story
definitely
that's
the loud,
more happy-go-lucky, feel good,
the
and other
people who are
people
loud.
want no. I want to be sent into like existential shit. That's hard to watch. That's hard to stomach. That's actually making me feel kind of like triggered and roughed up round the edges. Like there are different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
But the main thing with all of it is one doesn't need to subtract from the other. Dean's scene changing now and being done that way doesn't mean that OG no longer exists.
Yeah,
It doesn't mean
happen.
that the way that OG dying went out no longer exists. People get so infuriated with this remake because certain things changed. I don't like the new way they did Dines. It was slightly made up with him falling on Barrett's chest and just staring cold into his face. I was like, oh shit, actually that's powerful. But overall, do I prefer the change?
The Shinra
No.
troopers coming in was kind of...
It was shit. It was shit. It was like, oh, Cloud and that lot dealing with some of them, but no, now 4 of these have snuck through. Oh, and these 4 just happen to be unlike every other trooper. Well, I was saying this morning, they're like fucking stormtroopers. They can't aim like
They
one
can't
side
aim
of
for
a
shit.
barn door.
Yeah.
But now when it comes to killing Dine, it's like every
like,
single
he
one,
gets
vital,
messed up.
vital shot. And it's like, you're shoehorning that to make it that. I don't like it. But you know why I'm not angry? I know why I'm not infuriated. The reason I'm not going online saying it fucking ruined everything is because OG still exists.
You can still go play
Whatever
it.
they do in this, you can have an addition. You're seeing it from a different side. If you don't like it, cool. OG is still there.
It's still there for you to
This
play.
isn't overwriting OG. It's not control alt deleting. Everything that they do here now deletes this over here. It's not the case.
No.
And the only thing that makes it not that is how you frame your mind as you go through it.
That's a huge problem with people online. They're holding on so tightly to this for like their canons and this and that. What happened in OG and Advent Children and all the other stuff, it already happened. This is
Did I say FF15 for slavery? Sorry, Final Fantasy 16.
16.
I meant 16.
But it's
Obviously.
definitely something to view as an addition, a continuation. A lot of people will say that this is like something to view as like a after Advent Children, like after you know everything, this is something that you should play after that. And that's how you have to look at it. And also, I gotta really say, this Rebirth and Remake made me, well, along with Crisis Core, made me like Aerith. Fans are making me dislike Aerith again by reading their stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And I had to catch myself and be like, no, I do like Aerith now. We do like her. It's okay. Calm down. Because some of the things that people are saying are just so insane. The lies that they're making up is so insane. And I had to take a step back from the internet for a second because some people are so crazy as to, like, you just don't understand how the live stream works. People are saying that, Aerith, they just don't understand what she does in the live stream. She's essentially a goddess. She gets to go to the promised land and live forever, and people are just like,
that
"I can't have it happen. I really can't have that happen. If it does happen, I'm just gonna lose my stuff. Why are you doing all this?"
We spoke about that a lot. There's somebody just getting really angry saying, how could anyone think that Aerith dying is a good ending, a happy ending? For a start, things aren't supposed to just be black or white, good ending or bad ending. It's supposed to be more complex than that. And 2, the reason why it kind of isn't bad is because it's called the Promised Land. The Promised Land is the live stream. It's an afterlife. And yeah, that's exactly what we were talking the other day. I haven't seen Aerith's song yet, but her singing about being together forever, being with loved ones, is all essentially, the going back to the collective unconscious thing, a part of what I believe and what I hope is going to happen is, creating an afterlife where people can either choose to dissolve peacefully into the life stream and have their life force go on and nurture other lives, other organisms, and the world as a whole, or they can choose to remain with loved ones. I mean, that's what the Good Place presented it as, where it's like you can stay with loved ones up until the point you feel ready to move on. If you feel like you still have more work to do, it's a concept of a soul will only move on when it's truly ready to move on, and that Aerith has that. She has that instinct within herself. So when she goes into the live stream and becomes goddess of the live stream, her mimetic legacy will have a profound effect on the collective. That's the reason why all these souls sided with Aerith, why it was her at the end of OG and written in the Ultimania by Najima, that she does a rallying cry, and the souls of the live stream answer her. And that's when they come and they do it, because Aerith is just a part of a much broader, because she's not the only one to have that want. She's not the only one to have that urge. And that's why Yogachara and Najima's writing, talking about depending on what your dharma is and what your karma is, will group you essentially with other souls, with other purposes. That's what will create these. That's just what creates a world as a whole. And Genova is the being that looks to infiltrate, break down, weaponize all of those different collective unconscious bubbles.
And I think that that sort of thing that you're talking about, and the understanding of just like Aerith is so much bigger than just this character that the party is friends with. Like she has such a bigger role. She's so much larger than that. And people, it's weird because you'd think that her fans would understand that and appreciate it, but it's almost like they kind of diminish her and make her seem like less than what she is, which makes me so annoyed by her fans. And I was having a moment of just like, I'm sick of seeing it. Because it's like you have such a low understanding of what the story is really, her part in it, and how important it is. And
I mean,
I think once you understand that, then you can really appreciate her as a character, because she's not just some random person they ran into. Like she's above, she's like a god essentially.
It's so weird because it's like you've got the same product. Some people will throw the entire product and all the characters out. But what's weird with Seven is everyone has fallen into camps. And what you do when you have these crazy arguments is you try to explain all the reason why Tifa's a great character, well-developed character, well-rounded, so important to the story, so important to Cloud, so important to the team as a whole. But Aerith, nothing. No, manipulative, and nothing. Meaningless, pointless. And it's like, so you're saying on one end that the developers have created a shit character here that you hate and has no purpose, but here is fucking goddess of a character that we should all bend before and simp for.
And both teams keep doing that, and it's driving me crazy.
Why do you think the developers would just make like
they both have important?
You would praise them on one character development and then shit on it. I mean, I guess you can. It's weird the degree.
All of the characters are developed well. If you're hating on one particular character,
keep going.
If you're hating on one particular character and you're making shit up and you're diminishing certain things and you're twisting things, you just have an agenda and you're not actually like watching shit. Like I went into Remake kind of still disliking Aerith because like Crisis Core made me like her, but I was worried because like in OG, I was annoyed by Aerith. She was weak. In Remake, I really got to see her character. I really got to understand her more. By then, like obviously I'd seen Advent Children. I understood her place a lot more and I respected that. And it's like I do like just as a character, I prefer other characters, but I don't feel the need to like play games of who's better. They're all important. They all have vital roles in the story. I really do think that the game couldn't go without any one of the main party. I think they're all very important. And I think you kind of expose yourself as like a weird hater whenever you sit there and you just make up lies about a character. It's not a real person, guys. It's just a character in a video game.
Well, I don't know if
Let's not make up things just to like
these characters
push your
are more
agenda.
real to me than most real people.
That's a problem with
The
it.
7 characters have had more impact on my life than Ginger will ever have.
That's not nice.
Known this motherfucker for 15 years. He will never shine a light compared to any of these 7 characters. I'm sorry, Matt. I don't mean
That's
that.
not true.
I mean that.
But that's the thing is some
Love you,
people
bro.
truly do like hold this game too high, I think.
Spyro has had more effect than I have.
That makes sense.
I'll punch you in the nose.
That checks out. Dread.
Also, I just noticed,
Mhm.
I can't believe I've seen this menu screen this many times.
Mhm.
But old Roberto Ferrari's right there
Hmm?
on the front page, character design. Nomura and Roberto Ferrari. So, for one, I praised his work by accidentally because he retweeted me,
Uh-huh.
thanking me for what I'd said, but also correcting me because I said his name wrong. I called him Roberto Fellini.
Oh,
Just kind of embarrassing to have Roberto himself like acknowledge me, but I said his name completely wrong. But I'm just surprised that he's here because I thought Roberto was done with the series. He basically designed a lot of the 15 characters, and he was really pissed at how he they handled some of his characters, mostly with Umbra and Prina. Basically, Umbra and Prina were going to have human ninja forms. They were human ninjas. And he
Yes.
really loved the design that he came up with them. And then they threw it out. And apparently it really upset him.
Oh.
It really upset him
Oh.
that they did that. And I think there was some other beef as well. I don't think it was just that. But I recall there being some beef for Latins. So to see Roberto Ferrari, yeah, right there on the front page.
Do you want
Cool.
to pick something real
Oh,
quick?
it's still there. Roberto Fellatio. Lucky I did not say that.
While you pick,
Ro-
I'll just say this.
Roberto Fellini. Roberto Fettuccini.
This person says, honestly think that these are
Oh, the Italian appropriation. You've taken the piss out of my Italian heritage. Is that why you were piping up? Ginger's got Italian in him. So not as
it's
much as
mostly the French.
It's mostly the French. I love to all my French viewers, and I say that purely so that you stay
Yeah,
subscribed.
he actually does hate you secretly.
I don't hate it. The French and the British, we have a mutual hate. Hey, that's what hundreds of years will do of war will do.
I don't hate anybody.
No,
No. Except for people that personally wronged me.
I don't know.
And even then, I don't got time for all that.
You didn't seem too accommodating towards the Colombians.
The Colombians weren't accommodating to me. They did not like the gringo girl.
I really can't pick. Can you guys pick?
No, you have to pick. It's not so hard.
Ginge, pick something for me, mate. I actually kind of want a surprise, so I'm good with what you
Okay,
pick.
Ginge.
Anyway, I just realised
Would have had it.
it's an hour and 15 minutes in. I've gone way too deep in the rabbit hole. Way too deep. No, 91 homies still hanging out. Crazy, but I can't wait, basically, to finish Rebirth and, yeah, take
Finish.
what Najima has said and go and reverse engineer a lot of the story. I can absolutely say that that's very confirming to me. Carl Jung, Yogacara, and Buddhism. I've done 2 videos, or no, I've done multiple videos on 2 of those concepts. I did not know what Yogacara was, but after reading it and how I was just looking at it from a Kabbalist lens, this just basically sets the course straight. The premises are all the same in mysticism, consciousness, the pursuit of the eightfold path is all the same, and it's all very cool. And it's actually nothing in Rebirth has actually thrown out anything that I've had in my theory space. Now I know some of you watching this, and there's a bug in the comment section, you are itching to give me clarification. Yo, Pez, it's that. I know it's tough, but hold off. Please don't spoil me. I know I could still be completely wrong at this point. I do not know. Just going down the head cannons with it. But it's really cool to see that. This area, this is what I love. This is exactly the kind of content and weave I really wanted in the game. And the Jimmy just straight up confirming it, yeah, it's there. And understanding these concepts will give you a greater understanding of the story. That's what he said. And yeah, I think everyone can do a dose of breaking out of Western brain for a bit and realizing, yeah, Square Enix, Far East Asian nation, Japanese Buddhism, and the religious ideas, and just the way that they see the world is fundamentally different. It's cool. And I think too many people try to approach an Eastern developer, an Asian developer with a Western brain, and I think you miss. I think we miss a lot. The purpose, the point, and the construction that's gone into the story, because it's all very, very cool stuff. Very, very cool. But anyway, what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to reset the stream. So this could be its own chapter. I'll give it its own little title if anyone wants to watch this back. Bring the like button up. So anyone else who finds these kind of concepts and random waffles interesting will see it. But I'm going to quickly reset the stream, guys. It should only be down for about 3-4 minutes. So just stay on the page, and there'll be a new stream in a second. But sweet, we're going to go straight into Cosmo Canyon and see what Bugin Hagen has to say. If he's going to debunk everything I've just said and make me look like a fool. Yeah, in a mo, guys. Peace. Make sure you'll come back to the next one. Where we go.